sort of my new role with the transformation group. And I guess I'll start with kind of how did we get here? One of the roles actually for the Constitution was to sort of split up some of the responsibilities and to set a flexible framework for divisions 1, 2, and 3. The idea being that we wanted to empower the divisions to be able to make appropriate decisions that were going to be specific and more relevant for the conferences, institutions, and student athletes within those divisions. Because what we recognized was that the experience of student athletes is going to vary by sport, by conference, by school, and of course by division. And so we wanted to make sure that we were able to create a structure and a document that spoke to all of those values and empowered the divisions to make some of those decisions. And so that sort of led us to where we are now, which is this Division I Transformation Committee. And so here's where we envisioned getting a lot of the work done in terms of, well, we have this hopefully great document called the Constitution. Now, how do we make that work? And that's really what we've been charged to do. I'll highlight just really maybe about 4 or 5 of our real key areas that we've really been trying to focus on. One of them is, of course, the student athlete experience. And what we're trying to do here with this specific charge is enhance the model for a much better student athlete experience, one that takes into account today's experiences, today's framework. You know, we live in an incredibly digital era. What does that mean for student athletes? We're wrestling with NIL and those type of things, but also something where we're taking into account improved resources for health and safety. And of course, this academic experience. We spend a lot of time discussing how we improve the academic experience of student athletes. For me personally, it did not make a lot of sense for us to focus completely on the NIL and the compensation piece without us making sure that we are spending equally, or in my opinion, more time dealing with how we increase the academic experience of student athletes. The second one is really getting to the regulatory structure. And what we're doing with this specific charge is trying to distinguish the different rules that should be made within the membership at different levels. Meaning this, what rules do we need to look at pushing to the institutions? What rules are best suited for the conferences? And trying to create a framework that helps us answer some of these questions so that we can be a more efficient membership. And of course, that's going to take a lot of work and hopefully not a lot of time. And with the regulatory structure issues, part of this has to do with enforcement. As someone who has now graduated law school, one of my philosophies is we shouldn't be creating any type of rules that we don't plan on enforcing. And part of addressing that issue is trying to figure out where these rules and where those decisions need to be made. The third part is financial support. And what we're looking at specifically with this charge is trying to figure out how direct support of student athletes at the institutional and conference level should be reflective of the representation within the governance structure. And so we're trying to figure out what kind of questions do we need to answer there? What should that look like? And second part, I guess the fourth charge we'll talk about is membership enhancement. And this is where we have to be really creative, right? We are looking at trying to create a new structure, a new model, and trying to get to sort of, hey, what should this look like? What would better serve the members? What would better serve the student athletes? Is this something where, as we talk about membership enhancement and a new governance model, do we look at making decisions on a sport by sport basis? Do we look at bringing in more independent members to help us do the things that we need to do and better represent the needs of student athletes, administrators, conferences, and of course, our institutions? So that's really the bird's eye view of the charges that we've been giving from our boards. In terms of currently what we're dealing with, I'll highlight just a few things right now. The board of directors has charged us with taking a really close look in the infractions model. So trying to figure out how do we get to something that is more efficient, that is quicker, and that actually addresses the needs that end up coming through the system. A lot of this is also going to dovetail into this concept of rules modernization. Just like with the Constitution, I think initially we were dealing with a 40 plus page document that we whittled down to about 10 or 20 pages. We're hoping to do something very similar with our rules. A lot of the rules are out of date. They don't serve student athletes. They're the place within the structure now really isn't necessary. And so we're looking at taking a very deep dive into the rules themselves and hoping to assess whether or not a lot of these regulations are actually necessary, or if they can be moved to other areas within the membership. Can they be moved to the conferences or the institutions, so on and so forth. And I'll say this, you know, and then I'll hopefully be able to open it up for questions as I'm sure all of you have them. We have to understand that all of what we're doing, both with the Constitution and of course with the Transformation Committee now as it relates to Division I, all of our decisions are really guided by not just Alston, but that Section 1 of the Sherman Act, which is where we see a lot of the antitrust issues. We are, as we're hoping to answer some of these questions about, you know, the student athlete experience and a revised regulatory structure and a better governance model. At the same time, we have to understand that the law has precluded us from interfering with certain contracts that influence basically the financial transactions across states, meaning any type of restraint on, you know, things like coaching contracts and stuff like that. Those are going to be antitrust violations, and we need to be mindful of where our limits are. And so some of this really is a balancing act, which is trying to do what's best for intercollegiate athletics and of course student athletes and the model in general, but also understand that we are dealing with a legal system that quite frankly does not care how many student athletes graduate. You know, a lot of antitrust experts will tell you that the social societal welfare argument of, well, you know, gender equity, intercollegiate athletics is a vehicle for solving that, or race issues, it's a vehicle for providing minorities with education and so on and so forth. They do not care. At the end of the day, if you are interfering with certain contracts and you're putting a restraint on these vehicles for trade, you will be fined and you will be deemed illegal. And so we will end up in the courts again. And so we're trying to avoid that. So I know that was a lot of information. It'll probably be best for me to turn to some questions right now. I will do my best to answer them. If not, I think Jen is in the room and I will tag her in, of course, if necessary, but I'll do the best we can. So let's see what, I guess I'll go to the chat first. Let's see, Mike says, where the NCAA ends and the conferences, Nike, the federal government, again, any thoughts? How were faculty involved in your discussions about the Constitution? Right, so I'll start with this and then Jen, please obviously interrupt me whenever necessary. So we had faculty members in the room, right? We had a faculty athletics representative who was in the room, Don Bruce. He was someone that I worked very closely with. When it comes to the actual faculty representatives and faculty influence, this is something that I honestly hope continues, because that ombudsman role, in my opinion, not just for student athletes, but for the institutions or for the conferences, is one of the most important additions to that Constitution. Seriously, when I went around and worked with student athletes to actually draft that document, this was something that every conversation, every student athlete that we've talked to about this document has brought up as being something that they valued and that they thought was really important, because especially now where a lot of our decisions are tied up with the athletics department, having someone who's detached from that system and can help us work through some of these issues academically has been seen to be very, very important. What's tough is trying to figure out what that's supposed to look like. So when we initially brought up this concept of having the faculty athletics rep as an ombudsman or as an additional resource for student athletes, a lot of different organizations popped up and were concerned at, you know, various legal issues, whether or not this is going to conflict with the HR departments on campuses or compliance. And so really the issues here were, well, what is this supposed to look like? And I sort of counter with this question. When it comes to revising intercollegiate athletics, the question of what is this supposed to look like isn't really as valid of a question as what do we want this to look like? That's what's important. We have flexibility and autonomy to create the structure that is going to better serve student athletes and is going to better serve the membership and their academic interests. So for me, it's less of what is this supposed to look like and more of what do we want this to look like. And so right now, when it comes to faculty, we're working with the with FARA, with D1 FARA, and trying to figure out what would work for faculty athletic reps and what are our limits in trying to figure this out. Jen, did you have anything to add on that one?
No, sir.
So Mike, I hope that answered your question a little bit. Please, obviously, if there's follow-up, just reach out.
Kendall, we have a question here in the room. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You mentioned you wanted faculty to connect classroom to field system. Exactly what does he mean by that?
Kendall, the question is to clarify the statement that you made about faculty connecting to field success. It was early on in your remarks.
Yes. So what I was talking about there was, again, getting back to the faculty athletics representatives, that, in that ombudsman role. The success of student athletes is not just on the field, but it's academic. And you can also flip it. It's not just what we're doing in the classroom, it's also what we're doing on the field. And what I was talking about there is a lot of those two worlds, both the academic side and the athletic side, the issues that spring up in those two sectors influence student athlete welfare and student athlete mental health. So our ability to address problems on main campus and the academic side influence our playing ability, influence our mindset when we go onto the field. So it was really more of a general, I'm not planning on faculty getting to the track and doing different things. They obviously can, but my point was that faculty really has an incredibly important role for student athlete success, both off the field and on the field.
Thanks, Kendall. We have another question in the room. Go ahead.
So my question is about thinking about what truly creates a successful student. We've talked about academics and we've talked about athletic success. Sometimes the middle, and he brings is health and safety. So when we think about resources that are available to athletes that help them not only overcome athletic injuries, but also making sure that institutions have medical coverage for all of the spectrum of student athlete health and safety. To me, there are a lot of haves, but there are a whole lot more have-nots that are able to do not only adequate, but beyond adequate job of providing those services.
So I'm gonna say that everybody's that's not in this room is not going to benefit from my attempt at summarizing that very good statement of position. But Kendall, let me put it in the form of a question, and then forewarning, I'm coming back to you with a question. So in the form of the question, Kendall, maybe a little bit of insights and background about how the Constitution Committee ended up where it did with the language around appropriate health and safety support for student athletes from an association-wide perspective. And then my forewarning to you is coming back to, as Division I, what are you going to recommend are minimum health and safety standards as a Division I requirement for institutions that should be provided to student athletes? So we'll ask Kendall to give a little bit of perspective, because it evolved, Kendall, right? It evolved from the early thinking to where we ended up. And now, as Kendall has shared with us, we have this opportunity at Division I to say, this is what's expected from Division I institutions by way of health and safety for student athletes. So I want to hear from you what you think those minimum standards are, so that Kendall can represent that when he goes back and sits with his committee colleagues. So Kendall, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jen. It's a great question. So when it comes to the health and safety portion, that document was really something that was hoping to set the stage for our values and our principles for concepts that we felt were not just super important, but necessary for the collegiate model. Meaning that when someone comes up to me and says, Kendall, why is intercollegiate athletics important? What is it you all are hoping to accomplish? What are some things that really define the association? Health and safety was no question one of them. And so when it comes to the discussions leading to how we got to where we were, what we were hoping to do was, again, set the stage so that we were able to communicate how this is important, why it was important, set the stage for that, and then allow for divisions to come back and decide whether it's divisions 1, 2, or 3 to decide how they want to reflect that. So when Jen talks about what are the minimum standards within the division, that's really what we are getting to, because we recognize that what the University of Alabama is going to be able to offer their student athletes in terms of health and safety is going to be different than the divisions 2 and division 3. The concept being, though, hopefully getting to a point where we know what the baseline was. A lot of what we talked about and what we went back and forth on was, can we get to a place where we can agree on what the minimum is? What is the baseline where we can answer the question of, when a student athlete hops on any campus, whether it's divisions 1, 2, and 3, what should they expect? And that was what we were trying to get to in terms of what can we all agree, no matter what, has to be a part of that student athlete experience as it relates to these different things, health and safety being one of them.
Thanks, Kendall.
So the NATA has something known as the appropriate medical. I'm happy to.
We're inviting another guest to the microphone. So give us just a second, those folks that are virtual.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Jerry Zimke. I'm a certified athletic trainer. And what I'm about to say is a little bit biased, but here we go. So Kendall, thanks so much for your expertise in this and the work that you're doing. My advice to you would be the National Athletic Trainers Association, where the NATA has a document that's been around since the early 2000s. It has evolved over time. The name of it is Appropriate Medical Coverage in Intercollegiate Athletics. It applies a formula for size of sport team based on number of participants, number of days traveled, administrative duties, and other duties as assigned. And what that does is once you put squad size, travel time, administrative duties, etc., into the formula, it will give you bare minimum baseline number of athletic trainers that are needed for that particular institution. So when you think about a baseline that exists, we have that ready to go for you. I think what that document doesn't do, because again, it's kind of been around a little bit, but it does not take into account the increased demands on the athletic trainer for behavioral medicine that's going on right now. And I think that there needs to be a very pointed element of y'all's discussion about baseline needs that directly impacts behavioral health and nutrition. So I think if you'd like more information, I'm happy to work with y'all on this. But the information is there. So that's what I would add.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. And to kind of follow up and give, some really brief additional feedback to that, Jerry, that is super helpful. Something that you reminded me of was when we're putting together the Constitution, just like what I was talking about with the transformation group, how we are trying to work through the limitations of the Sherman Act. The Constitution was similar in the sense of we're also trying to safeguard against increased litigation. And part of that means that we have to take into account, at least, so putting my lawyer hat on, right? I would be thinking about in terms of, athletic trainers, the way that some of those licenses have changed. And now athletic trainers, depending on where you are within the state or which states you're in. It changes whether or not you are considered a medical care provider. And depending on where we set that baseline, that might open or change different litigation risks for different institutions. Jerry, we're going to look at that document. I think that is a great starting point for some of our discussions on health and safety, and we could use that to sort of balance some of these other issues. That is super helpful. Thank you.
We have a question in the room. Give me a second.
I was wondering if the central legislation comes out, there would be a committee on college, Senator Booker's legislation. How does that interact with maybe not college athletics?
So the question is about, and do you want to, before we get to that, do you want to present Senator Booker's video?
He will next.
Okay.
He will be presented.
So in Cory Booker's bill, he and his colleagues have a framework of a bill that mentions a committee on college athletics. And the question is, how might that intersect with the NCAA? What would that relationship look like if the federal government had a committee on college athletics? And the association still existed in whether it's its current form or its future form. So Kendall, I don't know if you want to take a shot at that. And if you want to provide an initial response, I can also share a little bit.
Yeah, I can comment on that briefly. You know, it's definitely a concept that's been discussed. But I think the prevailing question is, well, what would the role of that committee be? And who would be populating it? And do the individuals on the ground at the institution and conference level want to, you know, separate that decision-making level to outside of college athletics, right? I work with obviously thousands of student athletes, but also a lot of administrators. And what happens at the ground level often gets lost the higher up you go. So the concept, the idea of having the federal government, you know, advise or, you know, sort of run areas that are, again, we're not just talking about athletics, we're talking about academics. Because my big thing as a student athlete is, you know, again, I graduated from New Mexico, went to law school. Like I've seen, like I really am a child of intercollegiate athletics, and that's meant the world to me. But you're dealing with potentially a group of people who don't see the impact that college athletics has the way that some of you all do as professors and administrators and faculty, right? And so you run the risk of losing that because they're looking at it from maybe the fan or the, you know, or just the general support hat. And so I like the idea of keeping college athletics in the realm of those subject matter experts and the practitioners, the people that deal with student athletes every day. I think that would be the most appropriate step forward. Doesn't mean we couldn't work together, but I'm not super comfortable with it personally.
I don't have anything else to add to that. Are there any other questions on the Constitution or Transformation Committee that we can answer in the short term? I do.
Hi. What I was trying to ask on behalf of Mike and the Coalition on Intercollegiate Athletics, our organization is made up of all faculty senates. And so faculty senates want to have some input and oversight into athletics, especially at our own campuses. And so instead of just having the FARs, because a lot of FARs are not related to the faculty senates in the universities, how can the faculty senate people get more involved in oversight of the athletics?
Great question. When you ask the question of how can the faculty senates get more involved in the oversight of athletics, the first question I would say is, do you really want oversight into the athletic realm, right? Like it is a tough, it is a very complicated and difficult world. And I say that in jest, not to say that you all shouldn't. But my real answer is this: if this is something that those groups want more involvement in, we can certainly work with that. That's something that if we can get some of those groups together and sit down with the FARs and student athletes and try to say, okay, well, what are some of the problems that we want to try to solve together? There's nothing stopping us from doing that. The real question is, what do those groups want that to look like? Because I know a lot of individuals say that, and what they really mean is, hey, we want a seat on the board of directors, we want a seat at the board of governors and stuff like that. And they imply that if they have that, it gives them oversight, or more importantly, without those seats at those tables, you can't influence what happens within intercollegiate athletics or improve the lives of student athletes. And that's just simply not true. So I will make the long story less long. If those groups want to be involved, well, let's start working together and let's get involved. We can do that right now. And so I've put my email in the chat. Please reach out. We can let's start having those conversations together. There's no reason why the faculty athletic representatives and the other administrators and faculty on campus can't, we all can't work together, because the goal is the same.
And I would add to this, that if you've heard what we've said this morning, the role of the national organization is likely to be minimized in the future. I've been a broken record with you all for 8 years. You don't want national involvement. You need to figure out as an organization how you have local influence. That is where you need to shift your focus. So you can ask about the NCAA, because we're really a really good, big target. It's a beautiful color of blue. But you need to figure out how you have influence at the local level. That is where your influence can reside. Mike, you mentioned academic integrity. That's right. That's a really important component of your institutional missions. Now, it matters to the eligibility of student athletes, and it matters to the integrity of intercollegiate athletics, but academic integrity happens at the local level. So figure out how you work your influence and insert yourselves at the local level. Yeah.
We don't have leverage. That's not conversation, given the other stakeholders. And that makes it very difficult for us to actually bring our views to the table.
So the comment, not unlike what Mike has put into the chat, is that because of the dollars and cents that are involved in some athletic programs, that faculty members lack the leverage necessary to make inroads on campus. Yes.
But does the NCAA have any suggestions and areas that we should focus on?
So Jen, can I take a quick comment?
Yeah.
So in our transformation committee group, the last time we met, I think we met in person 2 weeks ago. We meet weekly. I forgot to say that. One of the first questions that I asked is, right now the national conversation is about NIL and compensation and antitrust and compensation. It's all about money right now. One of the questions that I asked and that I really challenged the group to deal with is, if we do not find a way to substantially increase the value of that academic experience to student athletes, alongside or at least far above that of NIL and these other means of compensation, we will lose all of this. So I say all that to say this, the answer to, I don't, I couldn't see who asked the question. The answer to that question is, we need to find a way to increase the value of academics, because right now the general public is saying, well, pay the kids because they're not being compensated, because to them, they're not seeing that value of that educational component. So one of the solutions to that, in my my opinion, is how do we make that experience more valuable? If I am blanking on her name, I think it starts with an L. I think she's from Full House. Like how do we capture, right, the academic value that was so amazing that someone had to fake being a student athlete to get into a school, right? Like that's the kind of stuff I am talking about. I want people to one day look at what student athletes get in terms of their academic and educational value and say, Lori, thank you so much, John. I want people to look at that academic value and say, wait, are you crazy? They're getting all of that? And so really for me, I think trying to tackle that question of what are some things we can add to that educational and academic experience and make that ridiculous? Because again, these are the people that are transitioning into society after 4 years. These are your doctors, these are your lawyers, these are your teachers. And so I would like to see that change. And I think that would answer some of these questions. Sorry, Jen.
Thanks, Kendall.
I have
Yeah,
a
Joe.
sort of off this direct topic question. Was the issue of gambling that's becoming a bigger issue as time goes by and states legalize gambling? For example, at my university, they are actually advertising gambling at games. And they have a contract with a gambling company to get money. And so from an academic perspective, I'm worried about the ethical issues associated with that. Like, are student athletes going to gamble on themselves? Are faculty going to pass someone in a class because they bet on this game? So that's a big issue that I have to keep in mind.
The statement is about sports wagering and the influx of legalized sports wagering, both, making it permissible at the national level, when the government made the decision it did a few years ago, and then states are now seeing there's value in increasing those budget lines by allowing sports wagering, and the pressure that campus individuals may feel if they're involved in gambling activities. So, you've got the good example of as a faculty member involving themselves in sports wagering. Are they making decisions in their classroom by way of academics in order to effectuate their sports wagering activities? So let me just offer the national perspective. We have a great deal of education that's done for and available. By the way, you all could use it for student athletes and coaches and administrators. It's still impermissible for people who are directly employed in intercollegiate athletics to involve themselves in wagering activities in the sports in which the association conducts a championship. So that remains on the books. I still can't fill out a basketball bracket for money. Someday, not yet. That is still on the books, but I think it's a really good question because there's a great deal of pressure and it's all about money, right? We are all driven by this, capitalistic nature and entrepreneurial spirit and all of those types of things. It's about money. So those educational resources are available, and I would encourage you all to take a look at them and use them if you think it's important in your departments and on your campus, and to be mindful of some of the behaviors, trainers, athletic trainers, be mindful of the behaviors that you might see in people that would note that there may be some activities, some pressures, some things that they're experiencing. Those are all available. I'd really encourage you to use them. We'll give you I'll make a note to give you the link.
But I would add that NCAA views student workers employees of the intercollegiate department. So athletic training students,
Yeah.
student managers.
Yeah.
Dietitian students, those are all considered employees and held to the same standard as said employees of the institution. And they are not allowed to gamble regardless of state law.
So we just
So
had a
if the
really,
rest of the students can do it, surely
there was just a really good point made about the fact that any individual who's employed in the athletic department at any level, including students, are held to the same standard within athletics to be prohibited to engage in sports wagering activities. So just a note for all of you to make sure that you're mindful of that. I will say that what we know is that there are some campus individuals who in the athletic department who might be more likely to engage in sports wagering activities because they might be in entry-level positions. So not to pick on our entry-level sports medicine professionals, but they have a great deal of information about the injuries and health of our student athletes. They may be targeted by people to provide information, right? They're likely making maybe a living wage, maybe, and they have access to information. So those are really the people who, we really need to focus our attention on and make sure that they have what they need, that they understand the risks associated with engaging in these activities, the unhealthy nature of the underworld of these types of activities. But the other way to look at it, many of you have known me for many years, I'm fairly Pollyanna, right? Rainbows and butterflies. It's above board now. When sports wagering is legal, there's other opportunities that avail themselves. So we need to think about those as well. But I'll get you the link to where the sports wagering educational resources are, and athletic departments are using them. And they may be available to tailor to other areas of campus.
Is there any way for the NCAA to have a rule that says you can't advertise sports betting at a school event?
Nope.
Kendall?
Nope. And this is, so just so we're all clear and comforted by this, in a perfect world, a lot of us would love that. That would be great. That would be awesome. We like the boundaries that we would set up if we weren't going to run into antitrust violations would be amazing. And I think it would actually put intercollegiate athletics in the proper lane, right? This is one of the reasons why people would like an antitrust exemption. So the answer to that question is no, because again, we run into this issue where you cannot interfere at a certain level to, different contracts and issues with the law and general commerce, right? So we can't do that because that infringes on certain freedoms that are provided just socially. You literally can't do it, and we would be subject to in the legal field, we call it the parade of horribles, right? The amount of litigation that we would receive after that, it would be rough.
And I'm not entirely sure that the institutions that we serve would want that from its association. We have a question in the room.
Just kind of a general question for Kendall. It's a little bit off the subject, but I get the NCAA and antitrust, because NCAA is a big player, but what about antitrust and NAIA, NJCAA? Does he have any thoughts on that?
Kendall, the question is, why is the NCAA subject to antitrust and not some of the other intercollegiate organizations, governing bodies like NJCAA and NAIA? Why is the association subject to those things and not other entities?
Oh, well, so just to be clear, everyone's subject to those things. Everyone is. That's not, NCAA is nonprofit. They're still they are all subject to it. The NCAA is not, is like, the NCAA is a target. They are a target. They host March Madness. They host, we got college football going on and track and field. So it is, the NCAA is a target, and they've been they've been a target for, I guess, the 10 years that I've been around. So everyone's subject to it. But let me put it this way, when our politicians get up there and talk about college athletics, they're not talking about NAIA. They're not talking about NJC, they're talking about the NCAA, which is why, you know, different groups in their mission statements, they don't say anything about some of these other organizations. They're literally talking about the NCAA. So everyone's subject to the Sherman Act and antitrust laws. The NCAA is just a target because of the 470,000 student athletes that come through the system.
Thanks, Kendall. We have another question in the room.
The focus of NCAA has shifted to the Power 5 and those universities that have lots of money. How do we get the other divisions more equality? Like the Night Commission, for example, wants to distribute the funding. How do we get more interaction with them from the lower divisions and the non-Power 5?
When you ask about the other divisions, are you talking about the subdivisions within Division 1, or are you also talking about Divisions 2 and 3?
All of it.
Okay, so Kendall, the question I think is, and you might have to restate this, there appears to be an emphasized focus on autonomy, conferences, and institutions, and how can other divisions, including other members of Division 1 and Divisions 2 and 3, do what, Joan?
Get more input. So I'm listening to them because it's like the Power 5 is controlling.
I'm going to challenge that assumption,
Okay.
because it appears that autonomy, institutions, and conferences have an outsized role and influence. And how can we make sure that Divisions 2 and 3 and other members of Division 1 can influence things within the association? Is that okay? Okay.
Well, let me tell you this much. The amount of time we spent in the Constitution Committee room discussing that very same issue would be appalling, or, well, I guess maybe it wouldn't, right? Part of that question turns on narrowing down on the specific issues that we're trying to address, right? Because again, you're dealing with a fan base that has said these three things in terms of money are what's really driving the ship. And so again, they're not sending those emails and comments to Hamilton College or Bates or Bowdoin. They're sending it to Alabama, to LSU, to Duke, not because those schools, you know, those other schools in different divisions don't have the influence, but because those aren't the schools that the fan base is really seeing as like, hey, their coaches are getting paid millions of dollars. This is a problem. They're looking at those bigger schools. And so to answer the question of how we get more, I guess, more communication or more influence of decisions, really part of what we're working on in the, you know, in the transformation group is maybe how do we look at the governance structure, and, or at least within Division 1, to really look at, well, how is maybe the direct financial support you give to your student athletes, how maybe should that be reflected in representation within the governance structure? Because then we're not just talking about just money generation. We're talking about your desire and your ability to support different aspects of student athletes. So maybe that's the best way, but that's the prevailing question. I will tell you that the autonomy or the autonomous conferences, they're not driving the ship on everything. And it is, they are challenged. We have open discussions. It is not this, they're kind of controlling all the decisions that are being made, and all the other conferences or divisions are kind of left hanging. But we really got to narrow down on what are the individual problems that need to be solved. And it's just like Jen said, a lot of these issues are campus issues. You have to address those with the institutions themselves. So.
Thanks, Kendall. Thank you, Kendall.
Thanks.
We feel very lucky to have this. Say that again? This is at the start, 0, 0. Just push the arrow. So,
Thank you so much. Glad to have a chance to talk to you all. You all gathered.
That is exactly correct.
Sorry about that.
She knows that was just a practice one. Let's go back to the beginning.
Good morning. The COIA Group Steering Committee started back in the summer to try and identify a speaker that we might engage in around NIL. So we contacted Senator Cory Booker's office, and we went through a lot of paperwork, a lot of back and forth, a lot of discussion, a lot of explaining of what we wanted. So the senator's staffer met with me and met with Joan and Kelly and decided that the senator would provide a brief message to give to you. So we're going to show that now. And when we finish, we will have questions and responses regarding this and other information we've discussed this morning. So we will start it now.
Thank you so much. Glad to have a chance to talk to you all. You all gathered together for this important annual meeting of the Coalition on Intercollegiate Athletics. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my involvement in college sports. I would say I got into Stanford not because of a 4.0 in 1600, but because of a 4.0 yards per carry and 1600 receiving yards. I worked hard academically in college, and I know that it was a combination of academics and athletics that really was the foundation for where I am today. And from sports, I learned some of my best lessons about teamwork and leadership, things about delayed gratification and grit and toughness. And so I can sing the praises of college sports, but I also know that we have a challenge within our college sports, that college sports is far from perfect. I'm speaking to you today because of a process that was kicked off years ago to give college athletes the long overdue access to their rights, what I believe should be their rights, the rights over their name, image, and likeness. Fortunately, the NCAA didn't wait for the wheels of Congress to turn, but acted to make sure that all athletes were given the opportunity to take advantage of their own NIL rights. I commend them for taking that step. This change has allowed athletes to benefit from their strong commercial value. It could be their highest earning years of their lives, or at least significant ones. And I'm happy that they can begin to access this value. But the status quo is still not working. It's not a balance. There's a patchwork of different rules across the United States that unfortunately undermine really what should be the larger goal for college sports, if there's a level playing field. I believe we must answer the questions that are still open about this new area we are in of NIL rights. We need federal legislation. It has to include more than just NIL rights, but also look out for the health and safety of our students, for their educational opportunities, all of which I believe have too often been curtailed to college athletes. So for example, since 2000, 30 college football players have died from heat-related illnesses caused by conditioning workouts that just went too far. And across sports, there are too few enforceable penalties that are attached to the NCAA's concussion guidelines. At the expiration of a college athlete's playing career, most of them are almost cast out without the kind of support that they might need. They're forced to fend for themselves while dealing sometimes with lifelong injuries that they sustain while playing that often cause them to have significant out-of-pocket expenses. We see that for women athletes in sports that don't really have many lucrative professional opportunities, they are not treated, a lot of their college athletes, with the dignity they deserve and the equal opportunities that should be afforded to them. From the beginning of a college athlete's career to the end, we must do more to protect their health, to keeping sure that they are safe, make sure that the college experience is giving them wide avenues to get an education that can help them better compete in the world. I believe the term student athlete, when talking about these amazing young people, but unfortunately, I think that term is not just. It does a lot. It's a mantra, but the NCAA doesn't really focus enough on the student. It touts a 90% graduation rate, but that only tells part of the story. Just 56% of Black male athletes who generate an outsized amount of college sports revenue graduate within 6 years. Athletes have no guarantee to be able to return to finish out their education unless they pay out of pocket. This is unacceptable. I acknowledge that there are some schools in the conference who go beyond what is required of them and make lives a little better for college athletes, really invest in them as people, as whole people. But this is often the exception and not the norm. It's time for all of us to take care of the athletes whose work and genius we at the NCAA have gained so much value from. This is why I'm going to be reintroducing an updated version of my College Athletes Bill of Rights, along with my colleague and ally in this, Senator Blumenthal. We'll do that this spring. The College Athletes Bill of Rights establishes new baselines for fairness, equity, and safety in college athletics and holds schools, conferences, and the NCAA accountable to those standards. The bill that sets forth a federal standard for athletes to market their own name, image, and likeness, but it goes much further. It creates enforceable, evidence-based health, safety, and wellness standards. It establishes a medical trust fund so that athletes aren't forced to pay out of their pocket for injuries sustained while wearing their school colors. It improves educational outcomes and opportunities for all college athletes. And the College Athletics Bill of Rights increases transparency and accountability, requiring public reporting of critical data like total sports revenue and expenditures, the hours that athletes are committing to athletic activities and academic outcomes by race and genders. All of this need more accountability. So we know we could do better. I believe there's a moral urgency to do better by college athletes who are generating what is for America not only incredible entertainment, but also $15 billion or more worth of wealth for so many people, so many different sectors of that world. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you all for giving me this brief time to share my vision with you. I want to thank the members of the Coalition on Intercollegiate Athletics, and I encourage you to support the legislation that really does put athletes in college first.
Go ahead, Vera.
So questions from the virtual audience or from the audience here in the auditorium? Questions or comments? Do you see any questions?
Thank you.
Questions or comments?
What does everybody think about?
You know, much of the time that would be college and I'm asking that because I'm the Department of Health and Safety, and I mentioned earlier, and OSHA for the last 50 years developed a standard for having specifics.
Thank you. The question is there any information about the College Athletes Bill of Rights in terms of any other items that might be a part of that bill? And I think the answer is that from what the senator said, this bill is going to be revealed in the spring with Senator Blumenthal. So I don't think we have that information yet. He mentioned some other points about in what he said this morning, but that the bill has not been released yet.
I would add that the NATA has a that athletic trainers probably, that they were undergoing, or they were providing care at the level of best practice. One thing that I would add is that unfortunately there are trainers at each institution, and so it is entirely possible that those 13 or happens happening at an appropriate level or appropriate number of athletic trainers.
So Jerry in our audience is a part of the NATA. And would you come up and give us your commentary? Because I think that's important for the audience, the virtual audience to hear as well. Jerry's coming up.
Hello. What I was mentioning, I thought I was speaking loud enough so that everyone could hear me, but what I was saying is there is a NATA position statement on appropriate handling for heat-related illness at the collegiate level, and there's also one for the high school patient. But I would imagine that the heat-related illnesses and deaths that were mentioned by Senator Booker were occurring at institutions where they were not able to field appropriate number of sportsmen or athletic trainers or appropriate medical coverage for intercollegiate athletics. That speaks to my previous point about making sure that we have a bare minimum number of health-related or health providers, i.e. athletic trainers that are hired by each institution, whether it's at the Division I level, the Division II level, or the Division III level. I happen to be at the University of Alabama, and you can't swing a dead cat without hitting an athletic trainer. But that is much different than my experience from my time at Savannah State University, which at the time was a football championship level athletics department. They have now transitioned back down to Division II. So I had 18 intercollegiate sports. I had 2 staff athletic trainers. I had 2 entry-level athletic trainers. I had no students. So that's a glimpse into what I'm talking about when I'm saying institutions have to hire appropriate number of athletic trainers, and they have to hire them and pay them what they have earned and what they deserve, which is not almost making a living. These people assume liability. These people assume risk. We are highly educated. We have 85% of us have master's degrees. That's if you want to talk about affecting change on health and safety for intercollegiate student athletes, it starts and it stops with the athletic trainer, and we need institutional support to be able to do it. The way institutions will support athletic trainers is when the NCAA mandates that it must have this number for this number of student athletes.
Thank you, Jerry. Mark from the University of Houston has made a comment that I would like to share with you. Mark says that he hopes that student athletes are not being cast out after playing, as the Senator Booker mentioned. Mark also recommends that we interview students when they are ready to graduate to make sure that their interests have been taken care of. So thank you, Mark, for that comment. Yes, we have another question from the audience.
Excuse me, not a question, just a comment. No one has seen the new legislation that Senator Booker is drafting and rolling out yet. I'm looking at the version from 2021.
Do you want to come up and make your comment?
Sure. Yeah, my comment, I'm Greg Gardner. I'm at the University of Tulsa. My comment was in reading through the 2021 version of Senator Booker's legislation, while we haven't seen the new stuff he's crafting, and more power to him on this, full speed ahead. In looking at the 2021 version, there is no mention of athletic trainers, of the infrastructure that needs to be in place. And I would concur with Jerry, not to be a broken record here. If we're not involving the National Athletic Trainers Association, what they have in place for best practices and athletic trainers in this legislation, it's tragically amiss. It's just falling short of the mark. While I applaud Senator Booker's efforts, if it's really going to make an impact on well-being, it needs to involve the NATA. Thanks.
Are there any other comments or questions? So at this time, we're going to have a 15-minute break, and we'll convene at 10 o'clock with an overview from the Faculty Senate's survey, and followed by that will be a presentation from the University of Houston.
So we are going to go over our 2021 COIA survey. And Jane is already giving you a little spoiler alert, problems revealed in COIA 2021 survey on governance in intercollegiate athletics. Maybe somebody can grab my other computer just in case we have questions. Yeah, more spoiler alert. But let me get into the survey first. So in 2021, we sent out a survey to all our members, and our members are all schools, particularly Division I schools who have athletics programs. We got 31 responses back, and as you can see, 77% were public, 7 were private. So as we got into it more, our first question was, do you have an athletics governing board or similar committee? Yes, 3/4 do. Does the Faculty Senate have a committee with specific responsibility for overseeing intercollegiate athletics? Maybe, half do. So you can see a difference already between having Faculty Senate representation on oversight over athletics. So there's definitely, well, I'm not going to say definitely a committee, but 75% have a committee with athletics governing board. How would you best describe the purpose of this committee? About 20% say oversight, 80% say advisory, and very few say governance. Okay, so interestingly, then we go on and we ask, well, are there positions on this group for Faculty Senate members? And 60-40 say yes. And what is the process for selecting this faculty member? Most of it has Faculty Senate involvement. Some of it is CEO appointed without faculty involvement, and that's about 25%. So ideally, as a Faculty Senate organization, we would like to see Faculty Senate representation at all levels so that we can give input on the impact on students in the classroom to the academic governance bodies. Now I see some questions. Should I keep they're Jane with her spoilers. So I'm going to keep going and see if we can beat Jane's spoilers to the punch. Did you have a question, Andrew? No. How are COIA members selected? Okay, so we're just a few questions about COIA in general. I apologize here. So COIA members are usually elected or appointed by the Faculty Senate, or nominated by the Faculty Senate, or 10% of the time appointed by the president. So usually we, being part of the faculty senate body, are elected or appointed by the faculty senate. And what is our role on the faculty senate committee on athletics? It's fairly evenly split between a voting member, a non-voting member reporting regularly to, and then a various other methods for being involved with. But we are usually involved with the faculty senate committee on athletics, if we have one. Does your COIA representative provide information to the faculty senate or other governing body? And 80% of the time we do. So ideally, we would like to be placed in our position by the faculty senate, integrated with the faculty senate committee on athletics, if there is one, and we would like to report to the faculty senate or other governing body. So what's the deal with the FAR? So the purpose, the process of selecting the FAR, some of us work really well with our FAR hand in hand, and some of us don't. So we were curious about how institutions elected their FAR, or appointed their FAR, or chose their FAR. So in about 20%, they're nominated by the athletic committee, and in about 40%, they're selected by the CEO without athletics involvement. 10% nominated by the faculty senate, and 15% elected or appointed by the, now I got to find out what exactly it said there, but I believe it was the governing body. So there's many ways a FAR can be appointed. How long do they serve for? 1 to 3 years in about 30%, 3 to 5 years in about 30%. I think some of those 1 to 3 years have a renewal phase, at least one. And then the largest category here, the 40%, was by the will of the president. So it's a very administratively controlled position, which makes sense because the FAR reports to the president or the governor of the organization. Does the FAR provide information to the faculty senate or other faculty governance bodies? Now, here's where we love to see the collaboration, because we need to know things that the FAR knows. And in most of the cases, yes, so 75-25 split, but we would definitely like to see information provided to the faculty senate. And when different organizations describe what was shared with the faculty senate, they either send 1 written report, 2 written reports, they report verbally to the faculty senate, or multiple times report to the faculty senate, or a mixture of that kind of thing. So we would like maximal partnership with the faculty senate in the role, for the role of the FAR. Are there any questions? Oh, Jane put some comments in the chat since she couldn't be heard. Okay, let's see. In most schools report faculty role in 1A governance is advisory, not oversight or policymaking. But at the same time, 71% believe oversight on their campuses is adequate, and 74% believe faculty oversight ensures academic fraud does not exist, and rules exist to address allegation of student academic misconduct. Notably, 42% report not knowing whom to contact about academic misconduct. Sure. Furthermore, the FARs are selected by a very closed process in 57% of schools. Okay, so does your campus have written policies and procedures for addressing allegations of academic misconduct by students generally? Perfect score. This is our only perfect score. But yes, all our campuses, all 31 that reported, have written policies and procedures for addressing allegations of academic misconduct by students. Does your institution have a formal whistleblower policy to protect individuals who may come forward about academic misconduct? It's about 70-30. So not everybody. Does your institution have safeguards for protecting student athletes from physical and emotional abuse? Almost all of them. So hopefully by now, all of them do. But We need to have some resources to provide to the groups that said no. Some things they said about these policies: providing reliable information, open and transparent, is important. Annual training is important. Exit interviews, which I know are difficult to do, but they are important. Ombudsman, we heard mentioned this morning, and again, exit interviews, very important. Some of the problems were described as the process is not clear or transparent. There is a checklist, but I can't find it, was what somebody said. Not sure if any. And in our faculty senate, we do not have a process for this. So this is an area of improvement for some schools. Let's see. Do you believe that faculty oversights of athletic on your campus has the power and necessary control mechanism in place to ensure that academic fraud does not exist on your campus? This question was also asked whether we had interest and time available to, got to move this out of the way, to make sure academic fraud does not exist. And they were very similar in their 75-25 answer. So I would say for schools that said no to this, we need to get them some resources. Is oversight of athletics adequate at your institution? So here is, of course, the money question. And let's see our comment. Will you share the results of this survey? Yes, absolutely. We will get these out to our membership. And we will follow up on the survey with other questions. So to the question of oversight of athletics, we asked for some good examples and bad examples of oversight. Good included advice and consent, which is rarely heard from, I would say, upper echelons don't usually need consent from the faculty senate to do things. Highly involved FAR. So the FAR is very important, and we're thankful to NCAA for naming the FAR as an important, as a required part of the governance of athletics. However, some of us work really well with our FARs. They're on our committee on athletics for the faculty senate, and some faculty senates don't have any contact with their FARs. And that's what we need to bring together. So a highly involved FAR is an example of a very good system of oversight. Faculty committee that has some authority is important, and then oversight of budget, at least knowing the budget, which you'll see in a future slide is difficult to tell because there's so many aspects to an athletic department budget. Some examples of a bad oversight. The university announced that about 1/3 of the varsity teams were being eliminated, and the faculty senate was not consulted or even informed in advance. No communication with the FAR, inadequate budget controls, and inadequate oversight is little to no input on policy decisions. So those are all things that we don't want to happen to your schools. Data and money are always important. We need to track the data, and the ever evasive financial support of athletic, different booster clubs, different organizations. It's very muddy, but it's very important because it all comes out to the whole. So budget management and ensuring academic success for athletes is something that faculty can be very involved in and should be very involved in, and making sure that things are equitable for students. At my institution, we were essential in bringing to the athletic department the fact that women who travel did not have access to internet at their hotels, but the football and basketball teams had perfect access to fast internet. So there was an inequality that was based on money that wasn't necessarily known about by the leadership. It was just the hotels that were selected. That's done now. That's history. We also noted that the women were cleaning their own bathrooms, but the men were not. That does not happen anymore, I'm happy to say. So faculty can be very influential in different things. Communication came up as the most important point. You'll see monthly a lot. We meet each month with the AD, Compliance Director, Student Athlete, Athletic Committee, Student Athlete Advisory Council. That's a lot, but it really helps. Constant communication, open lines of communication, transparent discussions. Something that's very important, I found, is interviews with student athletes. Very helpful. You learn things you would not know. And they trust you. Maybe in some ways they don't. They tell you things they might not tell other people. Like we had athletes tell us about body image problems on certain teams that they weren't going to tell their coaches. Committee on Special Talent Admissions is an appointed faculty committee. So this is best practices here, that the committee that allows in the athletes, now without their SAT or ACT scores, needs to have faculty input. And then again, monthly meetings you'll see there. Balance is important. A 6-member committee with 3 on the faculty senate and 3 chosen by the president is a good example of balance. And then equal distribution of decision-making across different layers, real insight, meaningful say. The governance committee has faculty, staff, and community members, which allows broader insight and works closely with the FAR. So I want to say that more than once because that's a very important topic. Coaches, staff, and student athletes are held accountable for legal inappropriate behavior, and that should be the case everywhere. And I believe, so I wanted to ask everybody this: what does COIA mean for you, and what do you want from COIA? Because we can do research such as this into best practices for faculty oversight. We will put out a white paper this year, revising our past white paper on faculty oversight. We can help communication between schools. If you have a training program that works, maybe I can use it too for my students. If you have a question about something, maybe the group can help you. Staying in the know, we will be sending out more frequent newsletters so that you can hear what different organizations are doing, including from the senator, from NCAA, from Knight Commission that you'll hear from later. So there's a lot of organizations doing a lot of things in athletics that we will let you know about, and as well as trainings. And then a network of faculty minds for improving student athlete experience, because that's what we all want. And so we all want to be working together. I forgot to mention Drake Group. They are also important in what's going on with athletics. So that's all I have. And let's go back to Jane. And do you want to add, Jane? Oopsie, sorry about that. Nope. Not going to leave the meeting. There we go.
No, I think you covered everything, Kelly. Did a great job.
And I almost did it in time. Any quick questions? Come on up. All right, so next we're going to have a very special panel, and Vera is here to introduce them.
Hello again. I'm Vera Hutchison from the University of Houston, and I am delighted to have my colleagues present to you some of the best practices that we have for athletics at the University of Houston. So we have a group of faculty, the Senate President, and staff members who will share with you some of our ways we connect with faculty, athletics, and academics. So we hope that you enjoy this, and we'll have some questions that you have after this presentation.
Are you able to share your screen, folks?
No, I'm not. It says host is disabled.
Well, host will enable, because we certainly want you to share your screen. You got that, Jerry?
Let me go. Yeah, there.
Let's go.
Okay.
All right, we see you in your preview mode.
Great, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Knobloch. I'm the COIA representative for the University of Houston. And I want to first of all thank everybody, especially the COIA, for the invitation. I apologize for not being in person due to some medical issues in my family. Back when the COVID peak was hitting, I was really nervous about being able to make this trip. And so I thought it'd be easier just to plan. So every year the COIA does allows a certain institution to highlight what they're doing in athletics, what's successful. And this year was the University of Houston's opportunity. So I was very excited, and I want to share a little bit about what we're doing, what our faculty is doing, what our administration is doing that's given us some success. So a little about me. Ironically, I am an athletic trainer, and so it seems we're very represented at this conference. So I was a college athlete. I worked in college athletics for 10 years full-time before going back to school, and now I'm a faculty member. And so I feel I have a very broad experience in what goes into athletics being successful at an institution, because I've seen both sides. I've seen it from the athletic side. I've seen it from the faculty side and the administrative side. And what I can tell you in my own experience is when the doors are open, everybody sounds like they're very excited and everybody wants to work together. When the doors are closed, I've learned there's a little bit of friction that exists between athletics and academics. And so what I wanted to do was try and expose what the University of Houston's done and what I've done in my position as a COIA rep to help close that gap that seems to exist. And so when I was up for faculty senate and I was asked to put my name in for the COIA representative, I jumped at that chance. And so what I wanted to do was try and bridge that gap, as I mentioned. So some of the things I've done is I've offered to our faculty the opportunity to come on the football field with me and stand on the sidelines and experience the game from literally 10 feet away from the players. And the first one that accepted that was a faculty member along with our our faculty president. And he was very excited. He's been speaking about it nonstop, told me that he's talked to his family about it. I want to do the same with basketball. So I'm trying to invite faculty over to athletics so they can understand what athletics goes through. I've also wanting to bring the athletic department over to our faculty side and let them come into, for example, seeing a research study that they could directly be related to, maybe VO2 max and how wearing a mouth guard affects VO2 max, for example, so that they can understand what we're doing that may go into helping them be more successful on the athletic field. And so today, what I'm going to give you the opportunity to do is hear from some of our representatives, from a faculty member, the FAR, Faculty Senate President at the University of Houston, so they can talk about a little bit on how they've helped to facilitate a successful athletic program without losing their identity in athletics, or excuse me, in academics. So just a little bit about the University of Houston itself, where our enrollment is very high, 47,000. The majority of our students, or excuse me, the largest college we have is College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. I myself am in Health and Human Performance, about 80% undergrad and predominantly full-time students, obviously, and we're a little bit higher in gender in terms of in female. So we're very diverse. We're very proud of that. We emphasize that in things like recruiting around the city, that we're one of the most diverse universities that exist out there. Predominantly Hispanic is our highest population. First generation students are almost 50%. So we have the diversity playing a role in that as well. And then you can see our student credit hours as well, predominantly in the senior class member area. So when it comes to success, I cannot speak highly enough of our president. And if you have a president who understands the importance of athletics in an academic institution, I think that it is extremely beneficial for the entire university, just the overall mindset at the university. Everyone is excited to see our president, and the mindset and the vision she has for it, and athletics is absolutely a part of that. If you've ever met our president, she's very personable. It's actually fun to watch her at athletic events. She is kind of a rock star on campus. She always wears red, one of our school colors. And if you've ever watched her around the football stadium, the students will gravitate towards her just to get their selfie with her. She can walk around the track, around the outside of the football playing field, and students will literally scream at her more than they'll be screaming on the field. So Dr. Couture has been with us since 2008. She's our president and our chancellor. She's been very instrumental in several of our successes, which include achieving an R1 status as a university. In terms of athletics itself, we just have joined or will be joining the Big 12. She oversaw the renovation of our football stadium, which was actually placed in the same footprint as our old stadium. So we had to find a new place to play. She was very instrumental in that. And we just finished renovating our basketball arena as well. So she's very excited to talk about athletics at our university. And that's fun to see versus somebody who says athletics should be a separate part of an institution. She understands that everything works together. So we have a lot of academic successes at our university here in Houston as well. A lot of top rankings within the individual departments, but what I really want to highlight are some of our athletic successes. So I was a student, doctoral student here from 2005 to 2011. I saw our former president leave, Dr. Gog, and then Dr. Couture came in from University of South Florida, where she was provost. Just this was her first time serving as a president. And again, it's been overwhelming the amount of change, positive change that she's made, in which has turned into athletic successes for us. So, for example, 700% or 70% winning percentage in football. If you exclude the COVID year, that's actually about 75%. We went to the Final Four last year. We've had 6 straight years of at least 4 Conference USA championships. We've had 19 All-Americans, 3 American Athletic Conference Coach of the Year or Coaching Staffs of the Year, and 117 basketball wins in the last 3 years, which is the second most in the country behind Gonzaga. And so all of these successes that we have would not be possible without a strong a strong administrative support. So on the side of the student athlete success, we just turned in one of our highest ever GPAs, a 3.4 overall GPA in the spring 2021 semester. All sports at the university, all 17 sports posted above a 3.0 for the entire 2021 academic year, which was largely the COVID year. And then we had 114 student athletes earn the Dean's List honor of a GPA above 3.5. So we're very excited about that. Obviously, student athlete success is a priority, but wins on the field do translate over to success at the university as well. So today I wanted to have our speakers talk a little bit about how they balance successful academics, but also understanding the importance of academics and how we don't allow one to take over for the other at a major institution. So we'll have a few speakers here, our faculty senate president, we'll have our faculty athletic representative, we'll have our athletic advisory committee chair will speak to us. I have a representation from the faculty themselves, as well as from academic services. And then I also brought in our sports medicine associate athletic director, who can talk about how some of his challenges that he saw during COVID and how he's maintained success for that. So with that, I'll start our individual videos here and let you learn a little bit about our program.
Hello and greetings. My name is Bharat Tamas and I'm professor and chairman of the sciences.
Share your audio.
We can't hear it. There is no audio. Yes. Correct.
No audio?
We heard a little bit in the beginning and then nothing. So when you share screen,
Okay.
there's a place by your mute button, there should be a place to share audio. Or you could try a different one of the videos.
Did that help at all? Okay.
A little bit.
Let me stop this share and let me try doing just the video. I apologize.
No, I'll call our IT folks and they will come help us.
When you're sharing your screen, there's a box at the bottom when you're selecting that will say share audio to. That should share your like the video audio, not just your microphone.
Let me try doing this. I'll share the individual video.
That's not working either.
That's not working. All right.
No, it's very distant.
Okay. I'm going to share screen, share sound. There it is. Okay, I think that will fix it. Let me go back to the original. Kelly, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear? Because I hear it's very loud on mine when I start this here.
Secretary and 2 members at large form the executive. Hello and greetings. My name is Balab Das and I'm professor and chair of vision sciences within the College of Optometry. I'm also currently serving as the president of the Faculty Senate of the University of Houston. Just by way of introduction, the Faculty Senate at UH has about 147 senators representing 18 colleges and the libraries and approximately 8% of the full-time faculty of the University of Houston. Our Senate is organized into 7 major committees who function in an advisory capacity to various units of central administration. The chairs of the Senate committees, Senate President, President-elect, Secretary, and 2 members at large form the Executive Committee of the Senate, whose main function is to serve as the main channel of communication between senior central administration and the faculty in the spirit of shared governance. So before I go any further, let me first thank Mark Knobloch, our COIA representative, and Vera Hutchinson, who was a COIA representative last year and is now serving in an executive capacity at COIA, for inviting me to say a few words via this recording. They asked me to talk about UH faculty perceptions about athletics and how the UH Faculty Senate might play a role on advancing the cause of or bridging the divide, depending on one's perspective, between athletics and academics and the athletic department and the faculty, etc. So let me first begin by noting that UH faculty are first and foremost fans, much like the general public, right? So they will cheer and get behind a winning team or criticize the coach on a loss. You would probably find more than a few faculty yelling at their TVs, expressing their joy, frustration, elation, or disappointment, depending on the outcome of the game. The proverbial water cooler talk on a Monday is likely about the Cougs. Our faculty can armchair quarterback along with the best of them and discuss recruiting needs if need be for the next season. So I would presume that this is generally true of faculty in most institutions. And so if there's a perception of faculty among students and the athletic department that faculty are dorks that don't care about athletics. So that is a fundamental misconception we must try to dispel. So when the Cougs have achieved success on the athletic front, such as we have in recent years in the big sports of men's football and basketball, faculty have been just as caught up in the excitement and fervor of the winning season. So just last year, I got a chance to stand on the sidelines of a UH football game. And it was one of the most exciting events I ever participated in. With the Cougs ranked number 6 in the nation in men's basketball at the time that I'm doing this recording, I'm very much looking forward to an exciting March Madness season. Now, coming to the role of the Faculty Senate and of Faculty Senate leaders such as myself, I would say that there are multiple angles to consider when it comes to athletics. The Senate is, of course, an important channel of communication between central administration and faculty, and issues surrounding athletics, no exception. Right, so at each of the monthly Senate meetings, our President Couture, makes it a point to convey her energy and enthusiasm over the successes of various athletic teams in the university. We also usually invite the athletic director to at least one of the meetings of the Senate to provide their update. I remember just a few years ago, then coach of the men's football team, Tom Herman, brought many key members of the team to the meeting. And the students received a standing ovation for their successes on the field. Yeah, I can truly say that this was a moment enjoyed by all, right? So faculty was seeing students who brought fame and honor to the university, and the students were excited seeing their teachers appreciating them for their efforts. this, I would say, is also part of our educational responsibility, is to recognize them when they do something great. However, in the spirit of shared governance, the Faculty Senate also has a responsibility to ask the president and others some important questions. For example, we ask about the athletics budget and the justification of institutional support towards the said budget, and what might be short and long-term plans in terms of evaluating such an investment. We want to see that there is a balance maintained towards investments made in academics and research and in athletics, understanding that the primary missions of our university are teaching and research. In recent years, the goal of UH was to gain membership into one of the Power 5 conferences, and there's of course much excitement that this is actually materialized. So some of the recent investments are perhaps validated. A question that we have asked our president, and in turn the president has publicly asked different units, is to evaluate how does Big 12 membership actually help that unit? For example, how might it help the university forward our academic and research missions? Clearly, there are intangible benefits, widespread name recognition, greater donor and alumni engagement, etc. Right? So the greater the transparency and communication surrounding some of these topics, the more likely there is to be buy-in from the larger UH faculty community. Right? The Senate plays a critical role in facilitating such discussions, and we take our responsibility seriously in these regards. So there's much positivity and energy in the campus around the Big 12 entry. And I think everyone here at UH faculty and Faculty Senate included are quite keen to see how things might evolve over the next few years. Well, let me end this little monologue by once again thanking Mark and Vera for the invite and all of you for your attention. In my opinion, avenues such as the COIA conference allows for the useful exchange of information about how different universities view the athletics programs and how faculty and Faculty Senate might exert influence within the framework of shared governance again. I look forward to hearing back from our UH representatives about what they learned at the conference and what we are doing well and where we might get better. Thank you all again, and goodbye.
Hi, and thanks for letting me join you in this important conversation. My name is Kathy Horn, and I am a professor and chair of the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Studies at the University of Houston. In the context of this conference, I have privilege and excitement to join you in my role as the faculty representative to the NCAA for the university. I really appreciate Mark extending the invitation to be in this discussion, and I'm excited to hear what comes from it, because this is certainly an important group of people, I think, who are meaningfully and deeply considering what it is to be in support of student athletes and their success. Mark posed a couple of really good questions, and I'm going to work through them and offer just a brief perspective on some of the core conditions and areas of focus that we really are foregrounding at the University of Houston. So the first question is around how a successful athletics program is viewed from a faculty standpoint. Certainly this group has deep knowledge base on that question, and I think I will add to it from the vantage point of a faculty member and the FAR. One of the things that I think about is the fact that really for us, for me as a faculty member, this idea of a successful athletics program really comes down to the idea of how successful are our student athletes. Obviously, the athletic focus gives them expectations and opportunities on the field to demonstrate talent and evidence from the hard work that they're doing every day in training and in execution of their special skills and talents. I think that same context and set of conditions exists for me and for us as faculty, thinking about success of the student in the way that they are engaging both in the classroom and outside the classroom, that really helps create a whole college and a whole student experience. So much of that, I think, is really captured in the opportunities students have to learn, to engage, to bring their unique strengths, perspectives, and skills to the learning environment. I think it also is indicative of a successful athletics program when we see our student athletes bringing those same skills, talents, and perspectives to a broader set of co-curricular opportunities that exist outside of the athletic experience alone. It's great when we have our students who are involved in other clubs, organizations, opportunities like internships that really let them be active in their contribution to the learning community, and also preparing themselves for these important spaces that they will be in after they graduate. You know, we spend a lot of time appropriately and meaningfully paying attention to our students' academic success, their retention, their time to degree. I think one of the things for me personally in thinking about a successful athletics program from a faculty perspective is really that idea that the walking across the stage with degree in hand is simply the beginning of what we should consider a reflection of our collective success. For me, a benchmark that remains salient for an institution who is living out its whole mission through its various parts is that have we created a group of graduates who are going into their respective communities, into their respective professions, and being change agents in ways that continue to align with those mission, vision, and values that we worked to engage them in as their time in students was with us. The next question is around observations that I've made as the faculty representative that really reflect what the University of Houston has done to invest in athletic success without compromising in academic success at the same time. And I think there are a couple that I will name with the footnote that there are many more that exist around these. So the first thing that I would draw attention to is the fact that our athletics department, from the athletic director permeated through the entire staff, really is committed to the whole student athlete. This is, I think, a really commonly articulated perspective in principle, but not always in practice for institutions, as athletic departments face the real challenges and realities of the constraints and expectations put on them with respect to performance on the field. One of the things that I really value about the University of Houston is that there is a very clear behavioral set of activities that reflect this in complement and concurrent expectation that students need to be their best selves on and off the field. I think that messaging around an equal prioritization and even a disproportionate prioritization that tips the scale towards academics is a really important contributor to the success that the university has in cultivating a student athlete who is a whole student. I think the other part of that, though, that's equally important is the idea that setting those expectations in both arenas high is important, it's necessary, but it's insufficient to really ensure that success. There also has to be this concomitant investment in provision of resources that allow for that outcome to be possible. So the institution has done, I think, an amazing job through our president and our provost in particular's investment in all students and their success. We've seen, I think, just incredible and meaningful attention to the kinds of macro and micro resources that have been difference making in students' ability to come in and thrive, including academic supports, social and emotional supports, community building supports, all of those aspects that we know from a research base really make a difference in how students will come in and be likely to succeed. Similarly, the athletics department itself has also been intentional about its investment on the student success side of the ledger in the student and athlete success. That looks like probably what many of your campuses are doing in terms of investing in key and meaningful academic supports, investing in having access for students in real time and meaningful ways to counseling services, to services that acknowledge that some of our student athletes are experiencing housing insecurity, food insecurity, challenges outside of the institutional context that have real and meaningful impact on their ability to be fully present. I think that one of the things I'm very proud about related to our institution is that we have not shied away from the idea that our students are coming in, looking, experiencing, engaging in ways that all students in so many of our students nationally are coming in to the institutional context. And that is not in what I think historically we would have conceptualized as a traditional student way. So we, I think, name, value, and engage in the provision of resources that both understand students and their strengths that they bring in from the various contexts in which they are coming, and then pair those with these other spaces that help shore up challenges that they may be facing, and also build on opportunities that they have already created for themselves and that their families and communities have created for them as well, to end up in a student athlete experience that's a sum greater than its parts. The only other thing, then the last question was anything else that I'd want to say. And I think the one space that I would like to touch on very briefly is the in complement role that several folks on our campus are playing, and our efforts to try to intersect those roles. So Mark, as you know, is our COIA rep. I serve as our rep to the NCAA. And then we also have an athletic advisory committee on the campus that serves, again, a particular set of roles in ensuring that our students who are also athletes have the kinds of experiences they deserve to have. One of the things that has been really nice in this current configuration of folks in those roles is that we have begun to intentionally put our heads together and think about the ways that our different spaces might be more collaborative, might be more in support of the other, that again really benefits student athletes in increasingly positive ways. So we are still a work in progress in that, and would love feedback on others who have had success in that kind of cross-pollinated endeavor. It's something we feel really strongly about, and I think hope bears much fruit, again, both for the institution and being able to provide the strongest support, the strongest advice, the strongest critical friend lens on what's happening in athletics and its relationship to what's happening in the larger institutional enterprise. But also, and again, most importantly, on behalf of our students, because we really, at the end of the day, share this deep and profound commitment through our mission that every student should be able to come in and have an opportunity to thrive. Looking forward to the conversation. Again, appreciate Mark's invitation to be part of it. And I can't wait to hear what wisdom you are ready to share. Thanks.
Greetings from Texas. My name is Casey Solari Williams. I am a clinical associate professor of health sciences and education at the University of Houston, and I am pleased to serve this year as the chair of the U of H Athletics Advisory Committee. Our committee serves to meet a requirement by the NCAA, but we strive to do more than check a box. I believe every member of our committee has a vested interest in the success of our athletics department, especially the success of our student athletes in their respective sports and fields of study. Our committee members all agree to serve and fulfill the overall purpose of the committee, advising the university president and athletic director to ensure compliance, right? But our conversations with the athletic staff, remembers to prioritize the ABCs, academics, budget, and compliance. And we also spend time inquiring specifically about our shared interest in and advocacy for student athlete success and experience at U of H. We serve with compassion, empathy, and support for the student athletes. As the chair, I have 3 major goals for this year. First is to increase visibility of our committee to the student athletes so they are all aware that there are representatives from the faculty and staff dedicated to understanding the unique perspectives of student athletes and supporting U of H athletics as they strive to meet and exceed goals and objectives. My second goal is to streamline the exit interview process in such a way that student athletes embrace the process as part of their total experience at U of H. From beginning, throughout, and at the end, it will be evident that they are supported and their voices, thoughts, and opinions are heard and valued. A good number already know this. My hope is for this to be a universal understanding across all sports. My third major goal is to activate the community members as advocates for UH athletics in their university colleges and or divisions. While we as committee members are poised to understand some of the intricate details that go into maintaining successful and compliant athletic programs, not all of our colleagues can say the same. And in some cases, this puts added pressure or burdens on student athletes and the staff. From the perspective of a faculty member, when our university culture includes successful sports teams, a supportive fan base from students, staff, faculty, alumni, and the community, we all benefit. The university community is lifted up when the teams win. The student athletes and athletic staff feel the love when fans show support, and that's motivation to keep striving for success. The campus climate is energized, and that energy carries over into other parts of campus life. At U of H, there's a culture of pride that we are all tasked with sharing throughout the institution or with anyone we come in contact with, for that matter. One of the many sayings we have at U of H is "We are the pride," as a play on the pride or pack that cougars in the wild belong to for life. We say, yeah, we are the pride, and we can say it in lecture halls, right? And we can say it in the student centers or around the campus, but it comes alive and is seen in action during athletic events. Those are the times we are the pride and a collective, gathered with a shared goal of winning for the team and for anyone with a connection to the University of Houston. That's what successful and supported athletics programs can do for an entire university community, help to instill the pride. So I encourage all of you to go back to your university with this in mind. The ABCs, academics, budget, and compliance, is the business we take care of and what we must do. But beyond having basic needs met in those areas, we have to remember the people of the university supporting one another is the why behind what we do. Again, when athletics is supported and successful, the entire university community benefits from the exposure, the revenue, and frankly, the pure joy that comes with it. Thank you for inviting me to present today. Thanks again to Mark for coordinating the presentations, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your time together. Be well and go Cougs.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Dave Walsh here at the University of Houston. I am a clinical associate professor and the internship coordinator as well as the program director for our sport and fitness administration program within our health and human performance department. And I was asked by Dr. Knobloch to just give a little take on what it means for athletics for faculty. So I can speak for myself, but I can also speak for a lot of the faculty that I've interacted with over my last 8 years here at the University of Houston. I was also the chair of the Athletic Advisory Committee for half of my time here, and then I was also had the pleasure of working for President Couture for a year as the interim faculty athletic rep. And what I can tell you, what athletics means to me, is an extension of the community. So many times that I've interacted with other faculty, this idea of sense of community, a sense of belonging, surrounds kind of our discussions on athletics. And also with alumni, University of Houston is big. We have nearly 50,000 students at any given point, and over the years our alumni base is enormous. And what I definitely gathered when we went to the Final Four, and when our football team does well, and when our women's swimming and diving teams continue to bring home the hardware, the sense is, hey, it's a sense of pride. They come out of the woodwork, so to speak, and wear their jerseys and wear their red on Fridays a little bit more, not just Fridays, throughout the week. And then I see myself in our classrooms, talking a little bit more about the games that happen perhaps over the weekend or across the semester. And so that's number one, a sense of community, a sense of belonging here at the university that surrounds our athletic program. I also, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, a source of pride as well. And so, I've had the pleasure of talking with a lot of different people, and one of them is our president. And one thing that always stuck with me is in her and I conversations is how we can best display all of the attributes that the University of Houston has at our disposal, and perhaps using athletics on a national scale, share our story. And so we can share the pride of not only athletics winning or just doing great things on the field and off the field, but it also allows us to put a spotlight on some of the other great things that we're doing here on campus, like our College of Medicine, or all the new buildings that keep popping up and the renovations here on campus that we like to see and when we're walking around. So there, you get to share that with not only students, current faculty in our discussions in the lunchroom or the water cooler, but also with alumni. That has been just a great interaction, at least in my experiences. And then, finally, it's kind of a source of growth as you see the athletic department and our athletic teams, women, men, football, basketball, swimming, diving, track. The list goes on, and I'm probably missing a few. Women's volleyball has been fantastic for us, and men's baseball, the list goes on. But when you see the new buildings popping up and you see student athletes not only having an advantage in the weight room, but you see a new academic program facility popping up just for our student athletes, that rubs off on everything else that we're doing on campus. That it's this source of growth, that we're in a developmental period here, a positive developmental period here at the University of Houston. And that makes me as a faculty member want to do my part. It inspires me to go every single day to deliver my best lecture I've ever had, or to interact with that one student athlete or any students on campus to say, what are we doing for the university to support not only just President Couture's vision, but our AD, Chris Pesman's vision, and all the great faculty that are doing their great job, whether that's in the College of Engineering to College of Technology to College of Architecture and so on and so forth. It just, what can I do to, I guess, fall in line, right, of being a great, I guess, ambassador of our university? What can I control in my little sphere here that I can contribute positively to our growth? So those were a few things that I feel comfortable talking, at least for myself, but I've gotten those from my years of just interacting with my fellow faculty members, and those three things seem to keep popping up: is the sense of community and sense of belonging, a sense of pride, and then also this sense of being a part of something special, like growing and developing and positively impacting not only our community here at the University of Houston, but in the city of Houston and hopefully nationally. That's our goal. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight of what a faculty member might take on athletics, and hopefully that might be common for some of your experiences as well. Well, have a great rest of your day, and thanks for including me. Hi, everyone.
My name is Kellen Wilson. I am the Associate Athletics Director for Academic Services at the University of Houston. I arrived here at U of H in January 2021. Prior to that, I had a time at Penn State where I was Associate Director for Academics there. I oversaw our educational courses, about 9 of those. And then prior to that, I also worked at the University of Louisville, and then also worked at Eastern Michigan.
A lot of music in the background.
University, as well as St. Louis University. So I've had a wealth of experience in academics.
Sorry, I think that's part of their video.
Okay, just want to make sure
I'm
it's
really
supposed to
happy
be there.
to be here at the University of Houston to really support this transition, obviously, into the Big 12, which is very exciting, and to use my experiences to support that. Upon my arrival at U of H, I have been very clear on the direction that I want academics to go. I want it to be a world-class experience for our student athletes, an experience that's going to lead them beyond graduation. You know, we don't want to just look for graduation. We want to look for opportunities to support them for their plan B. You know, I support every student athlete that wants to play professional, but it's our jobs to make sure that we help students plan a plan B. So plan Bs can be, you know, graduate school, it can be getting a job, it can be getting internships, it can be, you know, taking the GMAT and us paying for those, you know, those testing services or whatever it might be. And so, you know, my staff is very much aware of this. We are looking for students to thrive and not just survive. We are asking students to choose majors that they are interested in, that they want to do, and it's our jobs to make sure that it fits with their their athletic schedules and responsibilities. And so for us, it is about the student athlete. We are student athlete based. It is about what they want, and our job is to make sure we see that through. Just a few areas of pride. I would say within this last semester, we had 214 students on an academic honor roll, which is obviously 3.0 and above. We had 100 students that were on the university's Dean's List, which is a 3.5 and above. And then we had 14 students who earned a perfect 4.0 GPA. And so these are great numbers. Obviously, you know, for me, I want it to be better. I want, you know, more than half of our student athlete population on the Dean's List. I want a quarter of our student athletes on, you know, the academic honor roll. But this is a good starting point, you know, particularly given the impact of COVID. And, you know, we all are aware that the impact that COVID had. And so for us, we're just taking small victories in this first semester back to school. So COVID across educational institutions, not necessarily just U of H, has really impacted learning of students. And so we're talking about students who are entering college without the adequate math skills, the adequate writing skills. We are talking about students who haven't been in a classroom for the last 2 years. And so when we're talking about a return to class, we have had to deal with students understanding what a classroom looks like, how to take notes in a classroom, what are the expectations from a teacher within that classroom. And part of the issue, and it's not to anybody's fault, is, yes, students were in a pandemic, but the teachers were in a pandemic as well, right? And so teachers might have been having to deal with family that were sick. Teachers had to deal with maybe having kids at home, and their kids are also doing virtual learning. And so that entire time of COVID across institutions, across educational levels has been difficult. And so my guess is that we're going to see this impact for a few years to come. And hopefully we put the support services in there where we're allowed to, not necessarily allowed to, but we help students move up, increase skill, and really get them on the path pre-COVID wise when it comes to learning and academics. Some goals for our department is very clear. Obviously, is to keep progressing forward, keep increasing services. Obviously, tutoring and mentoring and learning specialist support is going to be vital to what we do. And so increasing that academic support, increasing our advising support and direction that we give to our student athletes, and making sure that the advisors are well equipped with the information and knowledge to support our student athletes. And so, making sure our advisors get to professional development opportunities and conventions such as this one, making sure that we collaborate with different units within athletics, but then also outside of athletics. The thing is with academics, we are a part of everything that happens here. And so, with our development office, I've been working with our development officer to ensure that we're supporting their communication with donors and people on the outside in our community to tell the student athlete story. We have opportunities to involve different groups of people, but it's just on academics, particularly in that realm, to make sure that we're providing that information. I want us to make sure that we are at a higher level celebrating academic successes. And so anything from, obviously GPAs and honor rolls, but seeing it at a game, hearing it at a game, seeing our student athletes at dinners where they are being rewarded for their academic support, and really elevating those celebrations the same way that we do in athletics, right? And so making sure we have that there, and working with different entities on campus to make sure that we are providing services that are adequate. If we need to reevaluate and implement new programs, we can. Working with student athlete welfare and development is another, because we all know we have to consider the whole student. And so if students have obstacles in front of them when it comes to family life, personal life, if we can't help them fix that, then academics is surely going to be impacted. And so working with that unit to make sure that they're utilizing the personal workshops, utilizing the career workshops, utilizing mental health services that we have here. And so it just allows us to work with different groups, different stakeholders, to ensure that we are adequately supporting our student athletes. Just want to thank the Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics for this opportunity to talk academics and to really represent the University of Houston athletics. And, obviously we are here, we are moving into this Big 12, we are excited. And for us, we are really happy to be here, and thank you, and go Cougs.
It is a great pleasure that I get to speak with you guys today. I am John Houston. I'm the Associate Athletic Director, Director of Sports Medicine here at the University of Houston. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about with our staff is how we've grown over the years. It all started with, I got here 25 years ago, started under Mike O'Shea. Mike O'Shea did a great job of establishing a tremendous foundation for our staff here. We started out, we had only 3 athletic trainers. Back when I started in 1997, we had 4 graduate assistants, and so we've just evolved over time. University of Houston has shown great growth during that time frame. As a university, getting to tier 1, and also in our sports medicine area. We've added some teams, and that has helped us add some staff. But just seeing and looking into the future, Mike looking into the future of where we needed to go. I had the great fortune of being able to take over for Mike when he retired a few years ago, and we had built our staff more and more. We had built it to about 9 staff people, and we had 5 graduate assistants. Something else that has helped us is the ever-changing world of education in athletic training. So athletic training curriculums were moving away from undergraduate programs and moving into graduate programs. So what we were going to see, and everybody across the country is going to see, is that you're moving away from the graduate assistants and you're moving into needing more full-times. They're going to move away from the undergraduates, so they're all going to be graduates at this point. Your student athletic trainers will move into graduate level. So every administration that we've had here has seen the need for that for us, and that's really helped us. We look at a coverage care model, and that we can have a team that's covered, but is the level of care where it needs to be? And in today's world, you need not only coverage, but you need the level of care to be extremely high as well. So currently today, like I say, we were at 9 staff people and moved to 11 now, but we had 5 graduate assistants. Now we have 11 full-time staff, and we have 1 GA, and we have 1 year-long intern. So that was where we were at. That's where we currently are, and then where we're going to go. So we have another layer that we want to add to that in the future. And the layer that we're going to add to that is that graduate assistant will elevate to a full-time. The year-long intern will eventually elevate to a full-time. And then our hopes are is to add 1 more full-time to that. So you can see where we started years ago, the level that we got to as far as full-time staffs and graduate assistants. We moved that up to a level that we're having all full-time to help cover or help manage that coverage care model. So not only having teams covered, but we wanted to elevate the level of care. And our administration, sports medicine area, are definitely getting there with adding more and more full-time athletic trainers in that area. Athletic trainers are unique in the things that, all the different things that we can do. Before I talk more about that, I want to just talk about our what really adds to our sports medicine team is our team physicians. So living in the city of Houston, you have access to the best healthcare in the country, and we have the best physicians that you can possibly have. Then their outreach to some of the best in more specialties around the country. People come to Houston to get healthcare. And so we're fortunate we have it right here in our backyard. And we just have some unbelievably dedicated team physicians. And Dr. Shoup and Dr. Lee, Dr. Gregory, Dr. Wynn, Dr. Greaser, just to name a few that clinic here with us on a daily basis, spend unbelievable amounts of time here in our training room, clinicking here on campus. And we also have PTs. We have physical therapists. We partnered with Memorial Hermann. The physicians are from Memorial Hermann. Our PTs are from Memorial Hermann. They started a residency program. In the last year, we started a year-long total immersion PT fellowship, and that has just been outstanding. The young gentleman that's with us this year, Connor, has stepped in, and he's just one of us. But he's here every single day. So you can see where we started. Back in 1997, we had 3 staff, and we had 4 graduate assistants. Now we're up to 11 staff. We've got 1 GA, 1 intern that we hope to turn into 3 full-times over the next 2 to 3 years. And then just with our team physicians and our physical therapist, we have an outstanding student-athlete healthcare system. That all starts with, at the beginning of the year, I related to our 5 domains of athletic training earlier, the different things that athletic trainers do. Starts all with prevention, injury and illness, wellness prevention. We start with our physicals the first of the year. We get them through that. And then, of course, when injuries do occur, we assess, we diagnose, we put them in the best position to get better. There are some emergency care things that we're that we handle and we take care of. And then we put them in the best position to get better. We take them through treatment and rehab to get them back out to safely return to play as soon as possible. But having access to the best healthcare system in the country is a great advantage for us as a sports medicine athletic training team, and having our physicians right there for us. And then so many other specialties that come out of that. With the pandemic coming about, that just added another thing that sports medicine and athletic trainers needed to do. And our athletic trainers are outstanding, totally outstanding. The way they've been able to step up, the way they've been able to adapt, that's a whole nother job. There's spreadsheets, there's keeping track, there's testing, surveillance testing. Once someone's positive, now we have to do the follow-up on that. And we're following up the health care on that student athlete and how that goes out to contact tracing and all the number of different things to add on what we were already doing. And every one of our staff, both last year, we've had a big turnover in staff. Those staff members just stepped to the plate and took care of it. It was something that we needed to do, so we did. Now moving into this year, doing the same thing. It's kind of become the norm. We'd like to move away from a pandemic, but we'll do that when the time comes. But our healthcare system, our healthcare sports medicine team has done an outstanding job with doing that. The last thing I want to mention about staffing in our program is our master's degree in athletic training. We have an unbelievable, it's in our 8th year, I believe it is, of the master's degree in athletic training. We have unbelievable director and 3 staff people over there, Josh Yellen, Mark Knobloch, Lacey Harrison. They do an unbelievable job of putting great quality students with us to help us do our day-to-day. Plus, we're there for them to create a great educational atmosphere. Basically, the athletic training room becomes a classroom for them. So it works hand in hand, and they do a great job of keeping us up to date on what's going on the educational side, what's going on the professional side. So one of the last domains we have is healthcare administration and professional development, and they do an outstanding job of keeping us in line and the things that we need to do to take care of these student athletes and stay in line with the American Medical Association and the KD, and which is the educational foundation for our program. So with that being said, I really appreciate you guys letting me speak with you today. The University of Houston, as you know, moving into the Big 12, that's exciting for us. In healthcare, we're just going to move right along with that. I think that's going to really help us in some areas being in the Big 12. But our athletic training program, our sports medicine program with our team physicians, our athletic trainers, is moving up that way regardless of the conference that we're in. We're going to continue to keep track and keep up with what's going on in healthcare, and we're looking forward to the future. Thank you. It is great.
So that actually concludes the presentation. So one of the things I told all of our speakers was to talk about what, excuse me, some of these COIA reps could take back to their respective faculty senates. And I hope I gave you some ideas of what we're doing that may translate over to what you can do better or do to make your relationship with athletics more successful. So I apologize, we went a little bit over on time. So maybe to save some time, if anybody has any questions, they could type them into the chat and I can answer them individually. Otherwise, again, thanks for your time, and I'm going to turn it back over to our hosts, and hopefully I'll see you all next year.
Does anyone have questions? That was a lovely compilation, and I love the spirit, the dedication to the school, the dedication to the health of the athletes. Questions? Yes.
How many athletes do you have at the University of Houston?
How many total athletes do you have?
I want to say 450 if I remember, but don't quote me on that.
450 without a quote. All right, and a thank you from Mike Bowen. Any other questions? Yes, Andrew.
I'm wondering what some of the challenges you see.
So what are some of your challenges moving from the current conference into the Big 12 and all the changes that are going on there?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And one of them is funding, because there's going to be more expenses. One of the things of moving into the Big 12 is hopefully we get more revenue share from, for example, advancing further into the tournament. So facilities is going to be a challenge. I mean, if you can think of a challenge, that's probably something we're up against, because we've been in the American Athletic Conference, for example. I think I want to say our stadium holds 55,000. So adequate facilities in men's and women's basketball, in football. But when you look at, you have to look at other sports with facilities, but funding is going to be a huge aspect. And so hopefully that helps us out with recruiting. I'm talking here to, some of you are in obviously the Big 12 and the Big 10 and these larger conferences. That's going to be a change for us, because we've always been in a smaller, quote unquote, non-Power 5 conference. So yeah, there's an immense amount, and I'm probably not even the best person to talk to about that, because I don't have the inside details on a lot of what's required for funding and staffing and things like that. But there are a lot of challenges. But honestly, I mean, this is I believe our third time trying to get into the Big 12, if not for sure our second time, and we were turned down. And there was overwhelming disappointment when we didn't get in. The faculty wants in, the students definitely want in, and obviously our administration wants in. So there is a lot of excitement that we're finally moving in, but at the same time, when we get in, there's a little bit of a, what do we do now? Because now we have to meet all these challenges. And so there is a lot of challenges. And so it's a great question that again, there's a lot of answers to that I probably don't even not privy to a lot of the details in that. So
we have another question that I could ask the entire group. Do you have a recommendation for a good place to start when dealing with an anti-athletics faculty?
Yeah, another good question. And I hinted at this in the intro to my presentation on purpose, because there's the other side of that, which is an anti-academic coaching staff. How do you deal with that? Because, I mean, I can tell you, coaches, when the doors are closed, they do things like they complain about faculty having classes in the middle of the afternoon, because that interferes with their practice schedules. Another one was, I'm angry to say this, but it's what us as faculty have to realize is I've literally seen student athletes being told to switch their major because their classes interfere with athletics, and it's frustrating. So how do you deal with anti-athletic faculty? I think that the selling point is you have to see athletics as your window to the community. So they don't really know what I'll give our example. They don't know what UH chemistry is doing. They're not, that's not a common, thing they talk about, but they do know what the football team and the basketball team and for some of the soccer team are doing. And that should be a point of pride for you. You want your athletics to be important. Where I see a lot of the challenges for faculty that aren't associated with athletics is funding. And the simple thing is, I'm getting grants for $100,000. Why is our coach getting paid $3 million? And I can't answer that. That's something that goes back to the individual institution. How does your faculty senate kind of handle that? And that's why I specifically asked our faculty senate president, you're in a kind of a major role there. And in our faculty senate meetings, we get a lot of questions about athletics, team GPA. The other side of it is, I can tell you this, that when a member of the student body gets a DWI, it's not in the news. When a member of the football team gets a DWI or gets something out there, and I don't want to give examples, but it could be
COVID.
So many things. That's in the news, and it's unfortunate that it happens, but it's also unfortunate that they're singling out an individual like that. Whereas in many cases, I've read that the studies that show that in many cases, student athletes have lower percentage of offenses than the general student body. And so, that's not mentioned though. You always see UH football player gets arrested for DWI. That's the simple one. Gets into a fight or gets assault charges against them. So I don't have an easy answer of how to deal with anti-athletic faculty. But that was the question that I wanted to present to the presenters today was, what is working for us here at University of Houston? Because we have a lot of pride in our athletics. When Tom Herman was here, he was our football coach for 3 years. The excitement that he brought to the campus was unbelievable. And I can give a really quick, short example. I actually walked out on the football field with my 5-year-old daughter because I wanted to check on our students who were doing their clinicals at the football practice. And my daughter kind of wandered around, and all of a sudden this guy comes running over to her. And I thought, my gosh, I'm going to get my butt chewed here because there's a kid on the practice field. It was our head football coach, Tom Herman, ran over specifically to teach my daughter how to do the Go Cougs sign. And so he was literally standing at practice, ran over. And so I don't know how many of you could say that about your head football coach, because I was terrified for a moment, saw what he was doing, and then he took a picture with her and we posted on our athletics page. So just understanding the value that a good athletics program can have. Now, I will also say there are bad athletics programs where there's a lot of trouble, where there's things happening that you don't want out, where maybe funding is, coaches go over budget, so they take funding from somebody that's not gone over budget to pay off that coach. That happens. And that's more for a question for administration, how they handle it. But we're very proud of our athletics success that's really happened recently. I go back to Dr. Couture, our president, for her commitment to athletics without losing focus towards academics. And I think that just builds pride within the university. She has what's called Cougar Red Fridays. If she sees you without a red shirt on, she will, when she's walking around, she'll walk up to you and give you a red shirt. She wants to build that pride. And that's obviously university pride, but a lot of it is spurred from athletics itself.
Well, that kind of leads into the next question. Is your athletic department self-sufficient, or do they rely on academic funds from the university?
I believe in Texas, funds cannot be used from the state towards athletics, so we have to be self-sufficient. And our Kathy, if you want to quote me on that, because I don't want to say that's how it used to be. I'm not sure if that's still exactly the same. It used to be self-sufficient from university, but not allowing on state funds. And so I believe we're self-sufficient, but don't quote me on that because I don't want to give you the wrong information.
Yeah, I'll hop in to say we do, depending on the intent of the question, there is what we would refer to as subsidy from the university around the academic support of student athletes. Mark is right, I believe, in that athletics itself is an auxiliary unit, and so it has to be self-sustaining in its function. There is investment that the university makes in the academic side of the house for student athletes. And there is some, I would say, integration in the way that athletics tries to ensure that students understand their full palette of resources. So for example, our counseling and psychological services is a space where our student athletes have some specific support that's made additionally available to them through funding that's coming from the athletics department. They also have access to the resources that every other student on our campus does with respect to the various opportunities that one could engage in CAPS as one space.
Great, and we have another question here. Go ahead.
I want to bring back something that I'm really intrigued by the athletic advisory committee. Is there any advice on how to sell this?
Okay, we have a big fan of the athletic advisory committee here who would like to sell it to his administration and would like your advice on how to phrase it, structure it, sell it.
Yeah, so what I would recommend is that you're giving the athletic advisory committee is a representation of athletics. And that collectively works to benefit the student athlete. So we have on ours, we have academics, we have athletics administration. Our athletic director is often in on the meetings, even if briefly, to give a report. We have a faculty athletic representative. And so the purpose of it is to benefit the student athlete by giving everybody a voice So that, for example, athletics alone is not just doing whatever they want, and then these changes are happening in athletics. So that might impact athletics, for example. What are the COVID recommendations, et cetera. So I wish I could give you a template that we could say, take this and say this, but what you're doing is you're trying to give representation from different departments to benefit the student athlete. So, faculty members on there, faculty athletic representative who talks about compliance and deals with compliance, and we have our compliance director in our meeting, we have the academics advising, et cetera. So I think it's a very, very beneficial committee. It's not one of those committees that just meets to figure out when the next meeting is. We actually talk about some very powerful discussions in that time frame. And Casey Williams, who was on this talk, she's such an amazing personality in their meetings, and everybody's engaged with her, and she really makes the meetings fun to be at. But we have a lot of good talks about what's going on. Everybody's aware. I can take it back to the faculty and say, this is some changes that are going on in athletics, and what do you all think about that? And if there is an issue, let's bring it back to the AAC, the Athletic Advisory Committee, and let's have a discussion so that we can get some input on that. So I'm glad to hear that there's support for that, because the end goal is to make sure the student athletes are taken care of. This isn't just for us to, faculty senate to be nosy. Not that we just want to know what's going on. We want to make sure that changes are being made to benefit the student athlete in terms of academics and practice and travel schedules and things like that.
And Catherine adds that having this established as as a standing university committee is really helpful. It gives it a sustainability that is different from a more ad hoc committee. So maybe we can connect you up and get more ideas for you. Yeah. Vera. Oh. Is there a student athlete on that committee?
There's not a student athlete, but we've invited student athletes at different times, if I remember right. I've started obviously in September as the COIA rep, and so because the COIA meetings often happen at the same time as our faculty senate meetings, I've missed a couple, but I don't believe we've invited coaches, we've invited student athletes, but I don't believe there's a full-time position for a student athlete.
There's not, and that's been a conversation, sorry, right on cue, dogs. There's been a conversation about the value of that on balance with the trade-off of the fact that the membership of that committee is a power differential, and that there are other ways to get student perspective that are more effective.
So I would like to add to the conversation, having been on the committee for several years, the idea is that athletes usually come to the meetings and will answer questions, and also coaches will come. Usually there's one coach at each meeting and an athlete is invited. The other thing is that Mark, who is the COIA representative, always is invited to the meetings, and he will make a report to the Senate and to this committee about what he learned today, et cetera, from the COIA conference. So there is tremendous participation. We sometimes have a community person there. We've had former athletes present who come back and help students navigate employment and life after athletics in a university. So there is quite a bit of, I would say, collaboration on the part of many entities that are necessary to participate in helping athletes on this committee.
All right, I don't see any more questions. I've got my red on from the other University of Hawaii. There's my green, but I'm wearing my red right now because I'm cold. So I want to say thank you very much, because this was wonderful, and we've already started ideas for other schools. So we have to go have a tour of the NCAA Hall of Winners, Hall of Champions, that's right. And so we'll be leaving all you folks on Zoom. But next year we're thinking about different places to have the meeting, even Hawaii or Washington, DC, or something like that. So we'll be back at 1 o'clock. You can say it, is that correct? Yeah. 1 o'clock. We'll see everybody at 1 o'clock. Eastern time, right? Okay, thanks, everybody.